$347,000 a year. That's what a VP of operations was earning when he typed 3 words into a blank document on a Friday afternoon. What is this for? Not the money, not the title, the work. 22 years of showing up, and he couldn't tell you why. But before I tell you what happened to him, I need to tell you about a custodian in Ohio who answered that same question in 7 seconds. And a technical lead who turned down a 20% raise because a dream manager showed leadership something the org chart never could. 3 people, 1 question. And the answer dismantles everything you've been told about why work is supposed to matter. 70% of employees say their sense of purpose is defined by their work. 70%. Work isn't just where people earn a living. It's where they find or fail to find meaning. But here's the number underneath that number nobody talks about. Of those who are engaged, the good ones, the ones who show up and give effort, fewer than half can articulate why their work matters beyond a paycheck. Even the people doing it right can't tell you what it's for. That's not an engagement problem. That's an existential one. And the consequences aren't abstract. Higher rates of depression, substance abuse, chronic illness, lower life expectancy. Purpose isn't a perk. The data says it's literally life and death. So why don't organizations fix it? Because they've been fed 3 lies that make the problem invisible. And these aren't small lies. These are structural, baked into how we think about work, career, and meaning. So deeply embedded, most leaders don't even recognize them as assumptions. The lie that purpose-driven work is a luxury for people who can afford it. If you're stocking shelves or driving trucks, you don't get to care about meaning. You just get to care about rent. That's garbage. And here's why. Remember the custodian at middle school in Ohio? Someone asked her what she did for a living. She didn't say janitorial services. I make sure kids have a clean, safe space, same job title as every other custodian in the district. Same pay grade, completely different experience. She didn't figure out that on her own. Somebody asked her. Somebody in her building had a conversation that reframed the work. That conversation cost $0 and took maybe 10 minutes. And it transformed her entire experience of showing up every day. Now, multiply that across your entire organization. How many people are doing meaningful work and have no idea? How many people are one conversation away from a completely different relationship with their job? That's the design problem. And most organizations have never even tried to solve it. They're too busy building engagement surveys and launching wellness apps and adding kombucha on tap, none of which answers the question that actually matters. Does this person know why their work matters? Purpose isn't a privilege. It's a design problem. And it can be solved. Lie 2. The purpose has to be grand. Listen, unless you're curing cancer or launching rockets, your work doesn't have real purpose. That's the myth, anyway. Purpose isn't about scale. It's about alignment. A carpenter who takes pride in building something that outlasts him has purpose. A bookkeeper who makes sure a small business pays its people on time has purpose. The grandeur myth keeps people searching for a transcendent calling when what they need is alignment between what they do and what they care about. Lie number 3, the company's mission is your purpose. We're revolutionizing sustainable energy. Great. Does the person processing invoices at 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday feel that? The company's mission and the individual's purpose are two completely different things. Sure, they can overlap, and when they do, it's outstanding. But assuming a bold mission statement creates individual purpose is like assuming a gym in the building makes everyone healthy. Purpose is personal. It has to be discovered individually, connected intentionally, and reinforced systematically. And almost no organization does this. But I'm about to show you the ones that do. And what happens when they get it right will change how you think about every person on your team. After 20 years of ERP implementations and organizational transformations, I've identified 4 pillars that separate the companies leading this revolution from everyone else. The structured process of helping employees identify what actually matters to them, not what should matter, not what the company wants to matter, what authentically matters. Most people have never been asked, not in school, not in an interview, not in a performance review, not by anyone. What drives you? What would you build if fear weren't a factor? What kind of impact do you want your life to have had when you're gone? I've watched what happens when a manager, not a therapist or a coach, a manager, sits across from someone at age 45 and says, "What's a dream you've never told anyone about?" Guess what? Engagement goes up, retention improves, discretionary effort increases, not because of a bonus, because someone treated them like a whole human being with a life that extends beyond the office. That's purpose discovery, the foundation everything else is built on. The question itself is the intervention. You don't need a 12-week program. You need one human being willing to ask a question that treats the person across from them like more than a function on an org chart. The organizations leading this revolution have made that practice structural, not a retreat exercise forgotten by Monday. A sustained conversation embedded in how the company develops its people. Pillar 2, discovery without alignment is just a nice conversation. Alignment is connecting what the employee cares about to what they do every day. A developer who cares about mentorship gets to train junior team members. A logistics coordinator passionate about sustainability leads the waste audit. And a customer service rep who dreams of nursing gets a schedule that allows classes. None of these cost significant money, but all of them require a manager who knows what matters to the person in front of them. When people see their values reflected in their daily work, discretionary effort doesn't just increase, it becomes the default. The work itself becomes the reward because the work is connected to something they actually care about. I've seen this in ERP implementations. The ones that succeed aren't the ones with better technology. They're the ones where the team believes that the project actually matters. Same principle, different scale, identical dynamic. And here's the part that should make every CFO pay attention. Alignment doesn't show up on a line item, but the absence of alignment shows up everywhere in turnover costs, project delays, the gap between capability and delivery. I worked with one company that calculated their annual cost of disengagement was $2.4 million. Not in lost revenue, but in the delta between what their people were capable of and what they were actually delivering. The gap is the alignment gap, and it closes when people see their values reflected in the work. Pillar 3, purpose protection. This is the pillar nobody talks about. Purpose is fragile. Discovered on a Tuesday, crushed by Friday. Protection means not reassigning the developer away from mentorship because there's a deadline. Not canceling the class schedule because staffing got tight. And not treating the things that give people meaning as the first thing to sacrifice under pressure. I've watched companies build dream manager programs. Employees identify dreams, create plans, start making real progress. And the moment a quarter gets tough, leadership pulls the plug. We'll get back to that when things stabilize. They never do. And the message is devastating. Your dreams matter to us, but only when it's convenient. Purpose protection means the things connecting people to meaning are part of the operating system, not the add-on you can disable. The companies that protect purpose during hard seasons come out with their best people still in the building. And it's not just the person who leaves. It's the signal to everyone watching. When leadership sacrifices purpose initiatives, the moment revenue dips, every employee gets the message. The values are decorative. Purpose protection is the organizational equivalent of keeping your promise when it's inconvenient. It's what separates companies that talk about culture from companies that actually have one. Creating a feedback loop where purpose doesn't just survive, it grows. When the developer watches a mentee get promoted, when the coordinator sees waste reduction numbers, when the service rep finishes nursing school and this company celebrates it as loudly as a revenue milestone, purpose amplification is contagious. When one person's purpose-driven work is visible, it gives permission to everyone else. Amplification compounds. That first person is hard. The fifth is easier. By the time you have 20 people whose purpose is visible and celebrated, it stops being a program and starts being the culture. New hires feel it in their first week. That feeling, that's the Pavlovian association at the top of the dopamine ladder. The employee doesn't just like their job, they associate the organization with their own becoming. That loyalty can't be bought, only earned. That loyalty can't be bought. It can only be earned. That's the flywheel. That's how individual meaning becomes organizational transformation. Discovery, alignment, protection, and amplification. 4 pillars, 1 revolution. The purpose equation. When you combine all 4 pillars, you get this. Personal meeting plus daily connection plus organizational commitment equals sustainable high performance. Notice what's not in that equation. Incentive compensation, stock options, ping pong tables, free lunch. Those create temporary compliance. The purpose equation creates something that doesn't require constant reinforcement because the reinforcement is built into the work. I worked with a distribution company going through a massive ERP implementation. High turnover, low engagement. A workforce exhausted by years of challenge initiatives that never stuck. But leadership did something different. Before the technology project, they launched a purpose initiative. Every employee, warehouse to C-suite, was asked what mattered to them. A warehouse supervisor wanted to build something his kids would be proud of. A shipping coordinator wanted to go back to school. A customer service lead wanted to mentor young women entering the industry. Leadership didn't just listen, they acted. Mentorship tracks, tuition support, role restructuring. Then they launched the ERP. Smoothest implementation I've ever seen. Not because the technology was simple, because the people driving it believed in it. The organization had shown in concrete and personal ways that it believed in them. When you hit the inevitable wall in a technology rollout, the team's response is completely different when they have purpose skin in the game. They push through because the project's success is tangled up with their own sense of meaning. That warehouse supervisor, he became the implementation champion on the floor. Not assigned, volunteered. First time in his career, he saw a direct line between the project's success and his own purpose. Different company, key technical lead about to leave. Offer letter from a competitor. 20% raise. 20%. But this company had a dream manager program. The dream manager knew something the supervisor didn't. This person's dream wasn't about money. It was about building something from scratch. Something they could point to and say, I built that. The dream manager brought this to leadership. Not the personal details, but the pattern. This employee is driven by creation, not compensation. Leadership restructured the role, gave the technical lead ownership of a new product initiative. Not a promotion, a purpose realignment. Turned down a 20% raise. Stayed put. 2 years later, that product initiative became the company's fastest growing revenue stream. Not because of a retention bonus, because someone understood what they actually needed. Now, think about the alternative. The technical lead leaves. $180,000 to find a replacement who's never as good. The product idea dies in a drawer. Leadership writes it off as the market for talent is tough. It's not tough, it's misunderstood. That's the math of purpose. It doesn't just retain people, it unlocks capability that money alone never touches. The neurochemistry. When people experience purpose at work, the brain releases oxytocin from belonging, serotonin from significance, and sustained dopamine from progress toward meaningful goals. This is the dopamine ladder we've been building all season. Purpose sits at the highest rungs. Compare that to purposeless work, cortisol from chronic stress, adrenaline from deadline pressure without meaning, dopamine only from completion, which fades immediately and needs the next hit. Purposeless work is neurochemically identical to addiction. You need more and more stimulation to get the same diminishing return. None of it satisfies because none of it connects to anything meaningful. Purpose-driven work is neurochemically identical to flow. The work itself sustains you because the work itself has meaning. That's not a metaphor. That's brain chemistry. It explains why two people can do the same exact job while one is thriving and the other is dying inside. The difference is not the job. It's the purpose connection. And here's the thing that should change how every leader in this audience thinks about their team. That connection can be engineered, not manufactured, not faked, engineered through discovery, alignment, protection, and amplification. The 4 pillars are not abstract. They're the engineering blueprint for purpose at scale. I need to be honest. This isn't just an episode for me. It's the episode. The one I've been building toward all season. Maybe all of season 1 as well. Because the purpose revolution isn't a topic I've researched. It's one I've lived. I spent the first decade of my career chasing the wrong metrics: revenue, utilization rates, billable hours. I was good at all of it. I could implement an ERP system, hit every milestone, come in under budget, hit a technically perfect solution. Yet, I was hollow. Not unhappy in any way I could name, just hollow. Like the VP in the open. Going through the motions of a career that looked successful from the outside and felt like a performance from the inside. Checking boxes, collecting wins that didn't feel like winning. I remember sitting in a conference room after closing out a major project, on time, under budget, client was thrilled, and feeling absolutely nothing. The team was celebrating, and I was thinking about the next project because there was nothing else to feel. The turning point wasn't a promotion. It was a question. Someone asked me in a very different context what I actually wanted my life to be about. I didn't have an answer, and the absence of an answer was the loudest thing I've ever heard. That's when I understood. Those massive ERP projects weren't failing because of bad software. They were failing because of people executing them didn't see the point. 70% of ERP implementations fail. The number one predictor is not technical complexity, it's disengagement. A purpose problem masquerading as a technology problem. So, I became a certified dream manager because the dream manager methodology is the most practical framework I've ever seen for solving the purpose problem at the individual level. And here's what I've learned. Purpose doesn't require anyone to change jobs. It requires someone to change the conversation. Stop asking, how do we get more out of our people? And start asking, what would it take for our people to give us everything they have willingly because they want to. The answer is almost never money, almost never benefits, and almost never perks. The answer is purpose. Every time. I've watched a 47-year-old plant manager cry in a meeting because a dream manager asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. And he realized nobody had ever asked him, not as a kid, not in his 30 years of working. I've watched a 23-year-old call center employee reimagine her entire relationship with her job after a single conversation. Someone connected the dots between her daily calls and her dream of studying psychology. That every customer interaction was practice in human understanding. Same job, same desk, same headset, completely different experience. Because someone helped her see the purpose that was already there, hiding in plain sight. That's what this revolution is about. Not finding the perfect job, finding the purpose in the work you already do. And organizations having the courage and the systems to make that possible. Think about the last time you felt truly purposeful at work. Not productive, not busy, not accomplished. Purposeful. When was it? If you can remember it easily, hold on to that. You're closer to the revolution than you think. If you can't remember, that's not your fault. That's a design failure, and it can be fixed. The purpose revolution is asking one subversive question. What would it take for the work you're already doing to feel like it means something? Maybe it's a conversation with your manager. Maybe it's volunteering for a project aligned with your values. Maybe it's asking your organization to start a Dream Manager program. Or maybe it's sitting down tonight and answering the VP's question for yourself. What is this for? People don't leave purposeful work. They don't disengage from it. They don't watch the clock. They don't need to be incentivized, gamified, surveyed, or bribed. They just need someone to help them find it, and an organization brave enough to protect it. That's the purpose revolution. Not a poster, not a campaign, not a program you launch and forget. It's a fundamental reorientation of what work is for. Work exists to serve life. Purpose is what connects the two. And when that connection is real, when it's discovered, aligned, protected, and amplified, you don't just get engagement. You get devotion. You don't get compliance. You get conviction. You get people who would run through a wall, not because they're told to, but because the organization helped them find a reason worth running for. The organization winning this revolution stopped treating purpose as an individual responsibility and started treating it as an organizational one. They invest in discovery. They build alignment. They defend protection when pressure mounts, and they amplify every win until the culture shifts from transactional to transformational. These aren't the companies with the biggest budgets or the most inspiring mission statements on the walls. They're the ones that decided at the leadership level that the people doing the work deserve to know why the work matters. And when they built systems to make that happen, not once, every day. That's not a revolution you can buy. It's one you have to build, one dream at a time. If any part of this hits home, here are 3 things. First, Subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And if this episode sparked something, send it to one leader who needs to hear it. This movement grows one conversation at a time. Second, if you're an organizational leader ready to bring the Dream Manager methodology into your company, that's exactly what we do at Trinity One Consulting. We help organizations implement Dream Manager programs that improve retention, engagement, and performance by connecting employees to what matters most. Visit TrinityOneConsulting.com. Third, check out the Dream Compass. It's a platform I built for dream managers to capture, track, and follow through on employee dreams. Purpose without follow through is just a nice conversation. Dream Compass makes sure you follow through. The purpose you've been looking for, it's not out there somewhere waiting to be found. It's already in you. Somebody just needs to ask the right question. I'll see you in the next one.
That's it for this episode of the Dream Dividend with Kevin Patrick. If this episode resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts and join the conversation at thedreamdividend.com. Together, we're proving that when organizations invest in human dreams, the dividends are beyond measure. Until next week, remember, the best investment you can make is in your people's dreams. Thanks again for listening.